G'day, guys. Welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the Geelong team preview. I tell you what, I'm very, very excited today. You've been asking for this collab for a fair while. I have with me today the pioneer of SuperCoach YouTubing. I was doing a little bit of research before I spoke to this great man. Since 2016, he has pumped out 983 videos and Shorty hit the 1,000 mark in 2023. Most of you, if you're watching, probably already know who this bloke is. It is Shorty from Shorty SuperCoach. Thank you very much for joining us, legend. How have you been going, mate?
Hey, mate, what's going on? Yeah, I'm good. Gee, you've given me a mighty old pump up there. No, it's good to be on. Like I was saying just before, I didn't realise I was coming up to the 1,000. I might have to start planning a little 1,000 milestone video.
Oh, 100%. We need to do something special for that 1K mark because what you've done for the community over a very long time, mate, is just phenomenal. And I was speaking with my mate Spills as I was chatting to you off air. It's the first time I've actually sat down and had a good chat with you, but it feels like I know you because I have been watching you for years and years now. And I do love all your stories that you pump out each week, all these different experiences. I tell you what, you make some pretty unique and exotic characters, Shorty. So I might ask you to share a story in a minute. But another thing that you brought up, a bit of a controversial subject here, was the Arnott shapes conversation that you had. Now, I believe that you are a pizza shape man, or no, sorry, I
barbecue man.
You're a barbecue man, aren't you? There was a
man.
few pizza shape fans.
Yeah.
Now, personally, mate, I love the barbecue, love the pizza. I'm a bit of a nacho shape fan, a bit of a nacho cheese, to be honest. I'm not sure if that's controversial or not, but I did do something the other night, mate. I was at a holiday in the Gambie with a mate of mine, and it got to, I think, 1 a.m, couldn't sleep, bloody hot up there. So I went to the cupboard, went to the fridge, got some cheese. I thought, beautiful, maybe some cheese and bickies would be nice. But no Savoys, no type of dry bickies. But what there were was some chicken crimpies, some mini chicken crimpies. So I thought, let's give this a crack, mate. Broke the cheese up into some smaller pieces because they were the mini ones. They weren't the usual size ones. Whack some cheese on there, mate. And I tell you what, Shorty, absolutely unbelievable, mate. So if you haven't given that one a crack, I don't know if you're a crimpy fan. Definitely recommend that. But I don't like the savory because when you finish the shapes, one thing that I love is the flavoring that's left down the bottom, and you either dip your finger in or you just guzzle it, like you're taking a shot. With the savory, there's not much there for me, mate. So look, that's my opinion on the shapes. What do you think about that, mate?
Yeah, look, the nacho cheese came through a couple of times with the boys at tennis, and I'll tell you what, savory did come through on the comments a couple of times. I was a bit taken aback by that, but I might have to try the old cheese operation with the crimpy. But yeah, you're spot on with I hadn't even realised the flavouring the bottom. That is so true. That is like one of the main things about it. You just dip the finger in there, and it's just beautiful stuff. But I like the those inner biscuits. There's I think, is it the other one? You got the crimpy, and then there's also, it's like those Dixie drumstick ones.
The drumstick, yeah.
When I thought they were a fish for ages, it made no sense.
But it does look like a fish, doesn't it?
Like when I was younger, I thought it was a fish. And probably in my early to late teens, I thought, shit, that's a drumstick.
Mind blowing, mate. That light bulb moment, isn't it? We have these in life, don't we? As we get a little bit older, mate. But look, we are here to do the Geelong team preview. We know that you are a very passionate Geelong man. You live along the Geelong area as well, mate. But a quick story. Give us your favourite or most memorable experience at a Geelong football game, mate.
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, to go to some of the grand finals and that, I think they're probably the very best days. I was lucky to be at 07 as a young lad. We stood at 11 and was able to get to, the most recent one last year, which was amazing. I was also at 08. I walked out of that ground crying that day. No word of a lie, getting lipped by those Hawks fans. But, they're like the best ones. But I think footy brings some amusing moments as well. And I always think the fan interaction is always one of the funny things. And I remember way back, I must have been a young fella. I was just at the footy with my dad, and times must have been tough in the Shorty household. They were just, we brought our own sandwiches. I don't know if
the old sangers, yeah.
We don't pack a lunch anymore, but Dad had packed the old ham and cheese, and he whipped it out and he was eating, and he somehow managed to flick a bit of ham in the bloke's hair in front of us, and it was chaos from there. It was just he was trying to pick it out, and it just got more ingrained in the bloke's hair. And it was like, oh shit! It got to the point where he I don't know how the bloke didn't notice that it was in his hair, but it got too much in there, and Dad, it was like, it's too much. I can't even say it to the bloke. It ended up falling out. It was all well that ends well, but it was a bit of a disaster. But I'd love to hear from the people watching those interactions with fans, not necessarily food related, but do you ever leave a game early or your team's going badly, and just the stuff that you get told? I remember it must have been a Hawthorn game, and look, I do occasionally leave the game before the final siren. Not super early, but I hate listening to the opposition theme song when you've lost badly
nothing
or
worse
something.
is there. Yeah.
And I remember just walking out of the stands, and it's a head down operation. Just don't look at anyone. And I remember this one bloke, he just looked me in the eye, this Hawthorn fan, he's like, "You're on the way home already, mate." Like it's just the simplest stuff. But he looked me right in the eye too. I looked up and I was like, shit, I feel personally attacked here. You know?
Let me just walk home, drowning my sorrows here.
Yeah, exactly. I've barracked my heart out today, and now I'm just getting lipped. But no, we've had Dad's pretty vocal at the footy, so we have over the journey had a few people not quite agree with some of the things he said. And Dad's a great bloke; he's a funny man, but the footy, it brings the passions out in us, mate, as you probably well know.
Oh, certainly, mate. I'll tell you what, if there's another Geelong Brisbane game down there at the Cattery, I would love to catch up one time, mate.
Yeah.
Because similar to your old man, I'm a pretty passionate supporter as well, mate.
Yeah.
And let my feelings known in a fun and jovial way, obviously, never in an aggressive way. But you got to be passionate. So the last time I was actually down there at Geelong, it was a very controversial game where there was that tackle in the goal square, the Zach Bailey tackle. I was up the other end, ball. Didn't happen. And was I dirty on the way home? That 2-hour drive back to Kilmore, mate, was shattering. But no, the best team did win on the day. But Shorty, I could listen to your stories all day, to be honest, mate. You should do some sort of a sit down. I should do some sort of a sit down interview with you about your life, because I tell you what, some of the special and interesting moments we could talk about, mate, would be amazing. But look, we're going to go through line by line, mate. We'll start off with the defence, and you know who we're going to start off with. It is a great man, Tommy Stewart, 604,000, average 109.7 last year from 17 games. Obviously missed one with concussion, a few with that controversial knockout of Dion Prestia. But from the 2016 draft, multiple All-Australian. We also got Huey McCluggage from that draft. So it's been a very nice draft for both of our teams, mate. So 2020, 100.1 average, 2021, 107.6. And then last year, 109.7. So from his first year, he's managed to increase that average every year. So that scoring pattern has been really positive. Does turn 30 next year, but I tell you what, he's locked into my side at the moment, Shorty. Do you have Tommy Stewart locked in at the moment, and is he close to a must-have?
Yeah, I do, mate. I'm right there with you. I do think he's a lock, and it's not too many times we talk about a player with that sort of an average and say, you know, he's got a touch of unders about him, because he did have I think it was against the Dogs. He was subbed off maybe early in the second quarter.
He was on fire. Yeah.
Dominating. And then I think it went down as a 21 or something like that. So not ideal for Tommy, but at this stage of the year, it does mean he's, you know, very much slightly cheaper than maybe what he would be. But no, he is a lock for me. I think he just racks up touches, the kick-ins, and he's an intercept marker as well. So I think you could definitely build your back line around him, mate, for sure.
He seems to just do everything. And what I love about Stewart, as you just mentioned, those different scoring avenues, he's just not relying on one way to score. He takes those kick-ins, intercept, kicks it well. So I'm a massive fan of the pick, mate. Originally, I didn't select him in the first team picker because I bought him in late last year and got a little bit burnt by him. I think he got tagged for a couple of games, kept a little bit quiet. So I think it was that recency bias of being burnt by him. But when I thought about things clearly, you look at what he's produced, going to keep that same role again this year. I think I'm with you, mate. He's an absolute lock.
Yeah.
Next bloke I want to talk about, not sure how relevant he's going to be this year, has been a premium of the past, and that's Mitch Duncan. So 498,800, 88.4 last year. Played a few different roles through the back up to the mid, I believe, even a little bit up forward as well. So here his averages from 2017, 109.8, 106.2, 103.2, 103.6. Then last couple of years, down to a 99, and then 88.4. So at 31 years old, where do you see him playing this year, Shorty? And will he be relevant this year, or one that we can pretty much skip past pretty quickly, bud?
Yeah, I think we can say thanks for all your great stuff over the journey, Mitch, but you're no longer in the conversation, which hurts me to say because I'm a big Mitch fan. But yeah, last year I must admit I did bring him in at maybe midway through the year. I really did think he was definitely going to be a premium when it was all said and done. But yeah, his role did get thrown around all over the place. I think his best footy was when Stewart was out and he just played that half back role because he is such a beautiful kick. But then we saw him sort of play half forward, and I think in the grand final it was like 90% forward. We saw him lay that tackle in the forward 50. You don't see that
That's
too
right.
often.
Yeah,
From
that's
Duncan,
right.
so.
Yeah.
But no, I think he will probably be a bit of a utility for the Cats. He will at times be off a flank, whether it's forward or back, a wing, occasional centre bounce. But no, I think he's probably just come to the latter stages of his career. And yeah, unfortunately, he's probably hasn't quite hung up the boots yet. But from a fantasy perspective, I think we'll hang him up.
Yeah, so in other words, thank you for your service, great man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but hopefully he can still actually play a role on the field for you anyway. Maybe not super coach wise, but I certainly think he's still got a good year left in him, I think, mate.
Yeah.
Another bloke who's been thrown around a little bit last year was Tommy Atkins. Actually spent a fair bit of time in the midfield during some stages. 461,200, 83.8 for an average, 22 games. Is he someone that we could look to select in our backline as a bit of a pod, or does he have maybe a little bit too much competition at the price, do you think, mate?
Yeah, he's probably not one I'd jump at this stage of the year. I think he's probably a guy that I'd say has a lot of potential to be a genuine premium, which sounds crazy from a couple of years ago. But Joel Selwood going, it means hey, there's a midfield spot right in the middle of the centre square there. Like, I mean, don't often get that at the Cats of late. And I think we've got a few recruits have come in, like Bruin will want that spot. Bose might want that spot. Parfitt will say, what about me, mate? And Atkins is another guy. I mean, personally, I think Atkins will go in there, but until we see it, probably can't sit here and say, yeah, look out. So probably going to watch him close because he played all his VFL days as a midfielder. And like we've seen recently, has played some pretty good footy in there. So whether he becomes a full-time permanent mid, if he does, he's a tackling machine and a pretty smart footballer. So he'd definitely be a pod, though. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, one bloke that you did touch on there is someone that lots of people are interested in, including myself, but I've still got a lot of question marks. I'm not sure if you can help us, Shorty, at this stage of the year, because it's been a little bit tough to get some news, but it's Jack Bowes, 277,500. Obviously made his way over from the Gold Coast, had an average of 63 from 5 games last year. Now, I have heard recently it was actually our man, John O'Carroll. And shout out to you, John. I was going to say, if you're watching, I know that you'll be absolutely pumped for this one, great man. But he did share an article with me coming out of Geelong where they've actually said that they've been trialling him in some different roles during the pre-season. We know that he's played some back there at Gold Coast, had a good actually stretch of games the year before last there. He's played a little bit of time in the midfield as well. But a couple of questions for you, mate. Firstly, do you think that he is best 22? And if so, what position do you think he may find himself playing down there at the Cattery this year?
Yeah, I've seen him in a lot of teams and he is a potentially fantastic pick, but at the moment, it's so hard to say, isn't it? I'm with you there. I think he deserves all the attention he's getting from us in fantasy land because great price, he scored before, and a bit of one of those talents that we've always had the eye on for a while. But then you go, gee, is he even going to be in the side round one against the Pies? It's such a weird one. It's so strange. So I guess when I look at the Cats team, like I said, there's a spot in the middle, and we've always been lacking a bit of a creative type off half back. Like Tui's occasionally been that guy, but he's probably hasn't been that rebounder as such. And Jack Bowes has shown that. So yeah, look, I do think he'll be in our best 22 when it's all said and done. But I'd probably want him being in the middle if I was picking him. But
Okay, yep.
we saw a stretch of games at the start of whatever year it was as he was a defender, and he averaged great numbers there too, didn't he? So I've probably sat on the fence a little bit there, mate, but he's just right there on the watch list. You gotta see what we get through preseason, and the Cats. There's a lot of competition for spots, so he's right in that mix. But I remember when he came over in that initial article, he was like, "I want to be a midfielder." So that's his intention. Whether the spot lines up for him and if he can grab it, we'll wait and see.
Fantastic. And it is really hard, as you mentioned, at this stage of the year when there's not much news going around. It's really tough to lock any sort of these players in that have a bit of, a few question marks around their role. Where do they exactly fit in the side? Now, quickly before we move on to the midfield, wasn't that a fantastic deal for you blokes? Jack Bowes coming along with pick 7. Do you really think that you were ultra interested in Bowes as a player? Or was it really that pick 7 as the big carrot there, do you think, in your opinion anyway, mate?
Yeah. Oh, man, that was a steal. I couldn't believe it. And I could only imagine that other clubs would have been furious with the Cats.
We're all dirty on you. You've just won the grand final, pick 7, Bowes. What the hell is going on? Bruins coming in, Henry. You bastards.
Bloody stitch up, man. But look, apparently I'll take Andrew Mackey at his word. He said that we've spoken to Bowes throughout the year, giving him a bit of love, and the pick 7 was just, fantastic cherry on top. I think there's a bit of truth in that, but I do think if the pick 7 wasn't there, we would have been keen to get Bowes, but it might have been, after Bruin, after Henry, might not prioritise it as much. But no, that pick 7 made it an absolute must-have, and we definitely went for it, didn't we?
You sure did, mate. But look, let's change tack now. We will get into the midfield. I've got a few options here. I don't know again how many are actually going to be SuperCoach relevant, but we will start with Mr. Cam Guthrie, 546,300. Didn't quite get to the ton last year in regards to a season average. It was 99.2 from 22 games. He is priced at a very similar point to some of those potential Uber breakouts like your LDUs, your Greens, your Warners, your Anderson types. So there's a little bit of competition there. But could he be a potential pod bargain, or don't you see him being close to that sort of top 15 mark when it comes to mids this year, mate?
Yeah, no, he's not so much for me, mate. Was it the year before? He maybe averaged like 111 or something like that.
He had a really good. I remember he had a great start. I think it was George brought him in. And then something happened. He just went absolutely downhill from there. So it was a George curse for Cam Guthrie. It was a bit of a running joke, I think, mate.
yeah. So I think that year, he was just, when players just have that hot streak of their career, and it's just like that purple patch where they're feeling physically great. They're just on top of their game. And I think that'll be looked back as his best year of his career. I don't really see him like a guy who, like drop down a touch and then he'll just get back to business as usual, being like 110. I think he probably sits between that high 90s, 105, but between there. So, yeah, I'm probably going to pass on him, but he's a good player for the Cats. I just, like you mentioned off the top, there's a lot of fellas that could take their game next level. Like I'm a massive rap on Tom Green. So I
with you, mate. With you. Absolutely.
I much prefer to go with him. Yeah.
That's a good point. It's really tough to select someone like a Guthrie because when you're comparing him to some of these other blokes, we are looking at them because of their upside, aren't we? And as I mentioned with Cam Guthrie, we're probably looking at the career best a year or two ago, whenever it was. And I'm with you, mate. I just don't see the upside there. Another bloke who I'm not sure if he's got any upside either. He's possibly at one of the cheapest prices we've ever seen him. And that's a great man. The ex-Brownlow medalist, Patrick Dangerfield, 457,300, 83.1 for an average last year from 15 games. I think that as a club, you managed him really, really well. I think you did a fantastic job. Look, SuperCoach-wise, didn't set the world on fire. I think you had one good week where he absolutely smashed it out of the park, or maybe a couple of good weeks. But apart from that, yeah, it wasn't anything fantastic. What role do you see him playing in 2023, Short? Is he still going to run through that midfield, or maybe similar to a Nat Five, spend a few of his the remaining days maybe up forward?
Yeah, look, I do see him as a mid. I think there's always been that little talking point of, Paddy can go forward and, make a difference. He's not the best forward. Or when it's all said and done, he's had some days. Like, I remember he kicked 5 against Hawthorn, that final against Sydney. Like, he's too good of a player to not occasionally impact forward of the footy. But I do think he will play pure midfield, particularly when you talk about Hawkins, Cameron, Rowan. They've added Henry, and you've got Myers, Close, and Stengel, of course. So I don't think he'll play much time forward. But having said that, he is in that category of footballer now where we just get him right for when it really matters, and that sort of worries me. Like, I think there'll be days where even for him, it just doesn't mean as much if he's best on ground. When players are like, they're 25, 26 and they want to be the best. They want to dominate every game.
Yeah.
I think Paddy's just happy, being a dad, just winning premierships when he can. Like, he's moved past that, I need to be the best every week for the team to win. So no, I've been a big Paddy fan. He's been in my team on a number of years, but not now.
Not now, not anymore. Well, I'll tell you what, we did touch on the fact that you managed to trade in pick 7 unbelievably this year. And the bloke that you did bring in was Jai Clark. So 175,800. I haven't seen him in too many teams so far myself this year, but do you think he's going to get an early look in, Shorty? And could he potentially be the bloke that fills the Joel Selwood void?
Yeah, no pressure on the young fella, is it?
Not at all. Not at all.
There's months they've been talking about, we've got this bloke that's a Joel Selwood replacement. So no pressure, mate. But I've got a fella who works at the footy club, actually, and he tells me Jai Clark just doing a bit of match sim off half back. So that's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Whether that's just giving him a bit of a look of behind the ball and that sort of thing. But yeah, I probably think he'd be hard pressed to be best 22 for round 1. But I mean, he's in that mix up against, blokes like Bruin and Bowes and the like. So being a youngster, traditionally they don't get a stack of game time unless they're Joel Selwood in their early years at the Cats. You sort of do a bit of an apprenticeship. So yeah, he's probably one that would probably have to dominate a preseason game to get a berth. But until then, we might just have to, go for some other types. Because there's a few around there, isn't there? Like, you got Will Phillips, you got Ashcroft just up a bit, and Philippo. And Jack Bytel, I reckon. Jono, let me know what you think. Saints, I reckon Bytel might play a bit more footy. So, yeah.
Good call on that. And look, from a selfish SuperCoach perspective, I wouldn't think it'd be the worst thing in the world, even if you didn't manage to get a game this year, because the year after, there might be more opportunity there. Possibly some of the older blokes may retire or see themselves out of the 22, and it may be time for him to step up. And we'll obviously get him at a much cheaper price around that 123K mark.
Yeah.
So it may not be the worst thing, even if he doesn't get a look in this year.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I'm not a Geelong supporter,
you're
obviously.
right. And there's nothing worse than the round 23 debut, mate. We saw it from Josh Goda. I'm a big fan of him. Oh, God.
Absolutely.
It would have been beautiful at 123, but now he's just a little awkward 190,
Yeah, like 70K onto the price tag for one game, and it was a decent game, and I think that's why lots of us are potentially interested in him, along with the role that he's going to get this year. But it is a good point. There are lots of players around this sort of price point, aren't there? Which makes it hard to look really closely at someone like a Clark when we know that he hasn't got any type of job security or defined role at the moment, but definitely wanted to look at possibly if he gets a go later in the season, mate. But look, there is only one more bloke that I want to quickly touch on, and that's Sam Simpson. So when I was looking through the list of Geelong players, he caught my eye mainly because of his price. I know that he did have a few good games when he was in the side. 166,100 as a mid forward. Do you see him being in the 22 at any stage this year, or are there just too many blokes ahead of him this stage, you think, mate?
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, I feel like he'd be pretty hard pressed to get a game, but he's got a real nice sidestep and he's a pretty smart footballer. But yeah, I probably find it hard to see him get in front of a lot of the other guys. But yeah, he once upon a time was, I think he played in the 2020 grand final, I think. So,
Oh,
he
okay. Yeah,
was
yeah,
part of it once upon a time. So
yeah.
it hurts me to think back to the grand final in 2020,
Yeah.
but I thought I'd reference it. But yeah, nah, you're right. Tempting, but would have to do a fair bit right through the preseason. Yeah.
That was pretty much what I was thinking, mate. I thought,
Mm.
just in case you never know here, I better quickly touch on the great man. But that's all for the midfield, mate. We'll quickly touch on one bloke in the rucks. Now, with Geelong, there's always a bit of a ruck merry-go-round, isn't there? You've
Mm.
got your Segler types, your Stanley, but there's another bloke who can, let's be honest, play anywhere in the ground. He's got the most unusual DPP status that you can see in the game. He's a mid-ruck, this bloke. Mark Witzarves, 97.6 for an average last year from the 21 games, an absolute running machine, 537,200. The absolute utility.
Mm.
With the ruck line this year, I am struggling a little bit, mate. I'm looking for some potential value. Do you think he's someone that could be a realistic selection for us in our ruck? So I'll take him out of the midfield because there's just too many options there.
Mm.
But for anyone that may be struggling in the ruck, is he someone to at least have a look at? Or do you think maybe due to the fact that he's such a good utility that maybe the fact that he doesn't have a defined role may make it difficult for him to deliver a decent and consistent SuperCoach average?
Yeah, I must admit he probably does need to be considered. Like, it sounds strange, but I think if you want to go a bit different, you probably can take a look at it, because as weird as his role is, he does get a fair bit of midfield time and the occasional hit out, allows him to tackle. Like, it is his perfect role for his type of athletic build and all that. Like, it's the most random position they've thought up, but I probably don't have the guts to go with him myself. But yeah, he does. I think he'll be in the same position because it worked so well for the Cats. But yeah, one of the stranger style of ruck options that we've encountered of late, isn't it?
Well, it works though, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
works for you. And as you mentioned, if there's no point reinventing the wheel. You blokes are
Mm.
the team to beat last year, and playing him in that role just seemed to work. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a fan of the pick, but I'm with you, mate. You got to have some pretty big kahunas, don't you,
Yeah.
to actually select
You
him in
do.
the starting side. We were having a chat off air about SuperCoach draft, though.
Mm.
So if you're a draft fan, he could be a very sneaky selection, in my opinion, anyway, mate. And yeah,
Definitely.
just
And
very quickly, we are actually looking to do another SuperCoach YouTubers draft this year. So stay tuned for that. We're getting Shorty, the great man, on board this year. So
yes,
definitely
yes.
looking
I'm
forward to
very
that.
keen, mate. Get me in.
Excellent, mate. Because you are a big draft man. You're mentioning as
I
well, weren't
love
you?
it.
Very passionate about your draft. So
Yeah. It really
yeah, looking keen.
gets me
Yeah,
right
very,
into it.
very keen, mate. All right. Well, look, that's all for the rucks, mate. We're not going to talk about Segler, Stanley, or the rest because I just don't
Yeah.
think that they're going to be relevant. We will finish off with the forward line. There are three blokes I want to talk about here, and that is obviously the Tomahawk, Jeremy Cameron, and Asava. Actually, Asava is actually a forward ruck, which does interest me
Mm.
this year. But very quickly with the Hawk, I believe that he's had some off-season surgery. Do you know how long he's going to be out for, Shorty, and how many rounds he'll miss to start off the season at this stage, mate?
Yeah, well, it's hard to assess so long out, but it does sound like it's at least a couple, which is not ideal. And I've even heard like an undefined, it'll be the early stages of the season, which as a Cats fan makes me a little bit worried,
He's been so
because he's
consistent, hasn't he? He
yeah
hardly missed the game. Yeah.
hardly missed, and the foot just sends shivers down your spine a little bit. You hate to hear about foot injuries, but um, no, obviously he won't be someone. He might be someone in draft who's still hanging around, and you want to take the risk and you hold on to him for the first bit of the season.
Good
But
point. Good
but
point.
classic,
Yeah.
probably not. You'll probably see young Shannon Neal get a bit of a go early stages. Yeah.
Well, that was pretty much going to be my next question. Given the fact that Tomahawk will be out, we're thinking at least for a couple of weeks, who actually fills that void? One bloke that I was really interested in, mainly due to his price and his ruck forward status, was Asava Radaglia. Now, he comes at 174,000, only averaged 39.5 last year from the 4 games. But another thing that got me interested was the fact that I have heard that he has been training a little bit in the ruck, and the fact that he was pretty keen to move over to Port Adelaide last year. But you blokes were steadfast. We're not trading you. There is no way that you're just don't think about it.
Yeah.
Remove yourself from those plans. You are going to be a Geelong player next year. We know that he was playing a little bit down back in the Rezzies last year as well. So what I like about Asava is that he can fill a nice gap, can't he? Up forward, down back, or even potentially in the ruck. So do you think he's one of those blokes that could either fill a void or even make a role his own this year in the 22, mate?
Yeah, like that's the thing, because I kind of thought when they were talking about the trades, I thought, fantastic, that's a win-win. We'll get a pick, you'll get some opportunity, Sav, because you're not going to get it here. So I must admit, I was really surprised when it didn't happen, because he was obviously a forward ruck for most of his career. Then he made this change that I never thought would happen, and he became a key defender and actually looked okay. But then you've got Sam DeConning, who's clearly well in front of him, and he's probably just insurance down back. But yeah, you raise a pretty good point if they go that way with replacing Hawkins. But I probably do think it'd be either Shannon Neal, who they're a big fan of, or if they just went a slightly different look to the forward line, maybe they plug Ollie Henry in there, and for a month they're a little bit shorter with Rowan and Henry flying for the footy alongside Cameron. But so I'd be surprised if he was in there. He might need a little bit of luck with an injury or two, but I definitely thought he would have gone to Port, but they held him to it.
I was with them. And the thing that really interests me is the fact that I'm flirting with having Darcy Cameron as my R2 this year. And I'd love to have a bloke in my forward line that I could swing around. Or else I was even thinking maybe Cameron in the forward line, because I'm obviously starting Madden's that loop as well. So that's what really piqued my interest about Asava, the fact that there may be a spot up for grabs with Tomahawk out. But from what you're saying, he's got a fair bit of competition with someone like a Neil, or they could, as you said, even go a little bit smaller with Ollie Henry. But I'll be really, really tracking his preseason closely, because I would love to find a cheap sort of ruck forward to match up with Darcy Cameron, mate. The only other bloke that I want to quickly talk about is someone that I've just recently forgiven. This is Jeremy Cameron. So when he was playing at the Giants, there was obviously an incident with one of my favourite players, Harris Andrews. And funny story, I was actually went to the footy show with a couple of mates and my wife, and there's question time after the show finishes, and the subject got brought up. It was a week after Jeremy Cameron laid the hit, and someone asked Eddie about it, and he said, "Oh, look, he shouldn't have got rubbed out. It was a bit of an accident." And I started piping up, mate. I'm generally a pretty calm sort of a guy. If you've got your opinion, that's cool. If I've got a different opinion, I'll just normally sit back and whatever. But I piped up, mate, and I had some stern words with Eddie, mate. We actually
no way,
had a bit of a
really
heated, esteemed conversation there, and the wife sort of giving the elbow. Shut up, mate! Shut up! You're embarrassing me here. But I had to make it known my feelings there. But I must admit, after seeing that vision of Jeremy putting the premiership medallion around the cow's neck and all that, I developed a bit of a soft spot for the bloke. I have forgiven him now. I actually brought him into my team. It was either last year or the year before that, for just a few rounds, I think, to end the season. But I heard that he did himself a little bit of a mischief, maybe a slight injury at training. Have you heard that yourself, mate, or any news to that effect?
I actually haven't, to be honest, but that's not to say it couldn't have happened, because he is a injury prone sort of a fella, but he's an interesting option, isn't he? Because I thought no key forwards in my team unless you Nick Rewalt, steer clear, but he can actually kick the goals, which we well know, but found a fair bit of the ball too. I think there was a game against North where he nearly had 30 touches or something like
a midfielder, wasn't he?
Yeah, works his way up and comes back. So, he, like you say, he'd need to be fully fit and all guns blazing. But again, you'd need to have a pretty sizable pair of cojones on you. But he is a key forward that can do it for us.
And he's not that traditional key forward, is he? He's athletic, can move up the ground, can almost play like a tall midfielder at times as well. So just what a recruit he's been as well. And geez, you've done well. Some of the blokes that you can attract as a club, but it's because you're a terrific club. You do things so well, so professionally. And there's many other clubs I think that would love to emulate what Geelong have done, mate. But look, that is all the players that I've got on the list, my great man. Look, I cannot thank you enough for coming on today. I did mention again off air that I was a little bit starstruck coming on today. even sending you that initial message to ask you to come on, I thought, Shorty is just going to blow me off here. I thought, look, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for it because I would love to have him on. I've always been a huge fan. So thanks for coming on, mate. Tell us, what have you got planned in regards to any content coming on in the next couple of months, mate?
Yeah, for sure. But I really appreciate you having me on, mate. And it's definitely been good fun, and it won't be the last time we pair up in team forces, mate. It's been good. In terms of the channel, I'm just about to finish the club by club previews, which have taken me a little bit longer than I had liked.
They've been great, mate. Loved them. Yeah,
been pumping them out, and then it's sort of fair game. I'll just kind of, the club by clubs make it pretty structured, and after that, I just kind of unleash the shackles and do whatever I kind of feel. So if anyone's got any ideas out there, just let me know.
Exactly. Drop down in the comment section. If you want Shorty to do anything particular, we can always team up for some sort of concept or topic if you like, because as Shorty mentioned, this will certainly not be the last collab, because I've had an absolute ripper time talking to you, Shorty. We had a good chat before we started recording as well. So great to see that you are also joining the teaching profession as well, getting into welfare there, mate. That is absolutely fantastic. So another thing that we've got there in common as well. Great, man. But make sure you do me a favor. Try those crimpies out, mate. Cheese and crimpies. And you have to let me know what you think. And be honest, mate. If you're not a fan, you're not a fan. Right? And that's another thing we're talking about. The fact there are so many people pumping out content these days. The great thing about it is all the different opinions and different ideas about things. We don't always have to agree on everything. And that is the beauty of actually getting people like yourself on, having a chat, thinking, geez, I didn't think about that. Geez, Shorty's giving me a little nugget of gold there just to put in my notes there. So, it has been absolutely terrific, mate. And thank you very, very much again for joining us, buddy.
No worries. It's been a lot of fun. And like you say, we'll definitely, this won't be the last time you see this 1-2 combination. Go ahead.
Beautiful. Well, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm not sure how many Geelong players you're going to be looking to select in your side this year, but there are certainly a couple on my watch list, and even a couple more after chatting with this great man today. So thanks again, guys. Take care. We'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.